generation, preaching a sermon in a schoolroom with a bunch of other preachers and a professor sitting there critiquing you. Talk about intimidating. And you're being graded for this sermon. And I did a sermon on the crucifixion, and I got a comment from a couple of the other students. Oh, that's so gory and ugly. Excuse me, that's the gospel. That's the gospel of Jesus Christ. Our only hope for the future, our only hope for the world is through Jesus Christ. Last Sunday night at George Jr., I was with a guy, I've worked with him before, I like the guy, real friendly guy. And somehow the discussion turned around to politics, and things turned to a big area. We're on different political planes, we'll just leave it at that. And I was talking about how I'm going to go out and vote last Tuesday, which I did. And he said, I'm never going to vote again. There's a bunch of crooked people and they stole the election and this and that. And oh, man. And then I go to work Wednesday night, and I'm working with another believer, a believer who lives just a few miles from this church. And he was telling me that the new treasurer of Mercer County is his neighbor, Amber White. And she's a good Christian woman, which I didn't know. So if you know Amber White, if you voted for her, she is a Christian woman, comes from a good Christian family. Their family is involved in a church out here. I forget what church it is, but out here somewhere. Our hope is in Jesus Christ. The suffering servant was critical. We need to understand that. And I think it's important that we go through the Easter season every year as a reminder. That we go through the communion every month as a reminder of the price that has been paid. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, John 14:1. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? If I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. Just as people are destined to die once and after that face judgment, so Christ was sacrificed once to take away the sins of many, and he will appear a second time, not to bear sin, but to bring salvation to those who are waiting for him. There are literally hundreds of scriptures in the Old Testament foretelling the coming of Jesus and his first coming. Every single prophecy has been fulfilled. Every one concerning his first coming was fulfilled exactly. What are the odds of that? Unbelievable odds. Imagine an area the size of the state of Texas. Have you ever been to Texas? It's a big place. And in the state of Texas, you have 3 feet covering the entire state of silver quarters. And in the midst of that, you have 1 gold coin. Your chances of finding that 1 gold coin in an area the size of Texas, covered 3 feet deep in silver coins, are the odds of every single prophecy coming true in one single life. Unbelievable odds. And if every prophecy concerning his first coming came true, then why would not we believe the second prophecies about his second coming? Just as he came the first time, he is coming again. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, and we need to draw a distinction. The second coming and the rapture are two different events. These are not the same event. So when I talk about the second coming, I'm not talking about the rapture. When you talk about the rapture, you're not talking about the second coming. The second coming will come at a time when God has predetermined, and only God knows when that is, where Jesus Christ will, on this earth, establish his kingdom as Lord of lords and King of kings, and he will reign and rule forever and ever. And thank you, George Frederick Handel, for the Messiah.
Amen.
What a magnificent piece of music. You're probably all familiar, you've at least heard the Hallelujah chorus. Magnificent. That is one number in an oratorio that goes some 3 hours over the life of Christ. Unbelievably glorious music. And the way that that was given to Handel is truly a miracle from God. He was locked away in a room for 23 days, barely left the room, barely ate, barely had anything to drink. He was just so enraptured with what God was showing him and what he was writing down. And he had the gift of music. He could write music. That he was just so focused on the scriptures and on that. The first time Messiah was performed, it was performed before the King of England. I believe it was King George. He was so moved that he stood. To this day, when the Hallelujah chorus is performed, in audiences that know better, they will stand. And that's not in tribute to King George. That's in tribute to the Lord of Lords and King of Kings, the one who ruled and reigned forever and ever. If you want a great song at your funeral, have the Hallelujah chorus played. Lord of Lords, King of Kings, forever and ever. Yes?
If you want a great experience, sing it. I did that several years ago.
Yeah, I did that too.
And if you want it now, at the Presbyterian Church here in town, there's practice every Sunday afternoon. Anyone that wants to sing.
When I was living in Sharon, they had a Messiah sing-along. And people in the audience could buy the score. If you wanted to sing along, you could. There was a choir that went along with it. And we just did the Christmas portions. Incredibly difficult music.
But it's beautiful.
But it's magnificent music. Jesus Christ is coming again. We do not need to get bogged down in all of the doom and the gloom that we see all around us. Oh, the sun is going to burn out in 5 billion years, and what are we going to do? Who's going to be around in 5 billion years? We're not going to be here. I'm going to be long gone to heaven by then. But we need to understand, God's got it under control.
Yes, he does.
Nothing is ever going to happen that is outside of the will of God. That is both for world history and for the history of your own private life. That anything that comes at the approval of God, and he is doing that for a specific reason. We know that all things work together for good to those who love the Lord, are called according to his purpose. God can take all things and work good for them. And I'm going to end with this, with a recipe, kind of, sort of, because it kind of fits in here. I've used this a number of times when I've preached Romans 8:28, is that you like cake, right? Cake is good. Margie, do you make cake too?
I do.
Not just cookies, but you make cake? Okay. Cake is good. Few of us would disagree with that. But how many of us have ever sat down and said, oh man, that flour looks real good. I think I'm going to take a big bowl of white flour or wheat flour. Just the flour, nothing else. How many people long to have a bowl of flour? Not me. I remember as a kid, my mother used to use baking chocolate. I thought it was a Hershey bar. I took a bite. I didn't stay in my mouth. Baking chocolate is extremely bitter. Yeah, there are some people that'll eat raw eggs. What about vanilla? Just straight up vanilla. Or just straight up salt. Butter? Yeah, okay. Somebody might actually sit down and eat butter. But you take all of these things into proper proportions and you blend them all together. All of these things that in and of themselves are not good by themselves. And then you put them in the fire, in the oven, at a predetermined heat for a specific amount of time. And you bring that out. What was once yucky flour that few of us would want to eat becomes a very good cake. That's what God does. He takes all of the unpleasant things in our lives, mixes them all together, and in the heat of the trial, something good comes out of that. Jesus Christ was the Son of God, the Son of Man. He was the suffering servant, and he will set all things right when he comes again. And I see our time is up. It goes so fast.
Praise the Lord.
And you didn't get spit on you. That's good today.